fade. In Fromville, reality is a stack of transparent glass panels, and the ink from the bottom is starting to bleed. Have you noticed that the ruins are the only things that never change? That's because stone is the only material that survives a system wipe. These aren't historical sites. They are residual architecture, constants that remain true across every iteration of the town. Today, we decode why Julie isn't traveling through time but experiencing a phase lag in a world where the layers of 1900 and 2022 are touching.
Fromville, it's more like a structural oddity, a collection of transparent sheets where the ink from the layers below starts to seep into the ones above. Picture reality stacked like delicate glass panels. Usually, each layer maintains its own space, but here, the ink begins to bleed. Shapes from earlier versions linger, not as spirits, but more like remnants. When you gaze at the ruins, you're not merely observing a historical site, but you're witnessing residual architecture. Each time the system resets or a previous iteration falters, it attempts to erase everything. But stone is tenacious. It's the only material that withstands the wipe. These stone nodes are not just random piles. They mark the spots where the older layers haven't completely faded. They are constants, the only elements that remain true regardless of which version of the town is currently active. These ruins aren't romanticized relics. They represent the aftermath of attempts to erase history, with stone refusing to comply. Wood decays, paint chips away, and people pass on, but stone retains its form. It stands as the last genuine feature in a deceptive system. When someone walks among those shattered structures, they're not just looking back, but they're connecting with a version of the town that hasn't entirely vanished. This explains how people navigate this space. There's horizontal teleporter, the bottle trees, which serves as a chaotic shortcut across the current map. Then there's vertical teleporter. The faraway tree ruins and the lighthouse don't merely transport you from one point to another, they guide you through the layers. When Julie experiences that unsettling shift, she's not traveling through time but encountering a phase lag. Her body remains anchored in 2022, yet her consciousness has a fluid identity boundary. She becomes like an antenna picking up signals from a broadcast in the 1900s, as her own frequency isn't firmly locked in. In those moments when Julie feels her body stay still, while her awareness drifts elsewhere, that's not time travel. It's misalignment. Her body is anchored in 2022, but her sense of self isn't tightly sealed. Something about her identity is porous. Like a radio slightly off frequency, she picks up signals that don't belong to her time. Resonant feedback loop. The town doesn't choose individuals based on qualifications, it thrives on vulnerabilities. Consider this. Why? Do children, the grieving, and the traumatized often encounter the boy in white or hear whispers? A stable, well-adjusted adult resembles hardened concrete, rigid and unyielding. In contrast, trauma, grief, and childhood are like wet clay. They foster liminal identities. When your internal narrative is already fractured, you become more porous. You shift from being a solid entity to a receiver. It's seldom the steady ones who resonate. It's the grieving, the children, those already marked by loss. Trauma subtly alters perceptions, loosening the edges of self-identity. A stable adult is like hardened cement, but trauma transforms that cement back into pliable clay, leaving behind fingerprints. The town doesn't just observe these cracks, it actively cultivates them. It applies constant theatrical pressure. Monsters, the isolation, the fear. These aren't merely scary things. The monsters act as pressure stabilizers, serving an ecological role to keep inhabitants in a state of chronic dissociation. This dissociation widens the cracks, allowing individuals to resonate with the other layers. It's a self-sustaining reactor. The system generates trauma to fracture people, and the resulting resonance prevents the layers from collapsing. The town doesn't just recognize those fractures, it amplifies them. The isolation, the night creatures, the unending uncertainty, all of it feels deliberate. The fear is constant, theatrical, almost ecological, as if the monsters exist to maintain pressure, not to annihilate everyone, but to ensure instability remains a gateway. Even dreams play a role here. They aren't just messages, they function as a buffer mode. A complete layer bleed could instantly overwhelm a human mind. Dreams allow the system to touch the subject in a gentler manner, gauging the connection before the resonance grows too intense. Once someone begins to resonate, the feedback loop activates. A flicker from another layer seeps through. Dreams that feel too vivid, memories that aren't theirs, confusion ensues, and identity blurs further. The cracks deepen. The system doesn't require bodies, it needs coherence to falter. Then there's the Root Cellar. It doesn't exude holiness or evil, it feels older than any established rules. It's like the foundation laid before anyone determined what kind of structure would rise above it. The monsters don't enter because they have a different purpose. They belong to the pressure. The cellar, however, lies beneath. It's not an altar, and it's certainly not sacred. It's the zero layer, the foundational that predates the monsters and the rules of the current phase. The monsters avoid it because their operational domain doesn't reach that deep. They are part of the pressure layer. The Root Cellar is part of the foundation layer. Ultimately, Fromville doesn't seek your soul or body, it craves your coherence to fail. It operates like a reactor that relies on human instability to stay active. Victor didn't survive. Because he was special, he survived by navigating the layers through his drawings, crafting a new narrative to fill the cracks before the town could exploit them to consume his mind. Victor didn't endure because he was chosen, he thrived because he kept creating. He transformed confusion into story. When reality threatened to smear across him, he pinned it down with crayon, giving it form. He filled his own cracks before the town could use them against him. Boyd is the current target because he embodies rigidity. The system is assaulting him with Parkinson's, the loss of his North Star, and his six specifically to shatter that rigidity. It waits for the moment he finally fractures, as a cracked leader offers the strongest resonance. Boyd stands apart. He is solid, a man who guides himself by duty. Such solidity is tough to penetrate, but if it fractures, the break will be profound. Remove his anchors, isolate him, shake his certainty. The more fixed the identity, the louder the resonance when it finally splinters. A place that sustains itself by keeping its inhabitants slightly undone. Not a prison with a guard, but a reactor thriving on instability. The most perilous state one can find themselves in there isn't fear it's losing sight of who you are.